Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Santa Claus is come and gone. Welcome back to another installment of Bullsheet. I'm your host, Chase Wilson. Along with me again, my good friend, Z.Williams. How are you today, Joel?
I'm good. I'm in a good mood. I'm ready for the New Year's and ready to discuss some really hot topics in the news.
I want to discuss something before we get to the news. And it's something that bothers me every year on New Year's. You know, the ball drops and you kiss your loved one or the stranger standing next to you, however it seems to work. And then we sing this old English song that no one knows the words to.
Old Anne Sign. Yeah. I actually have two recordings of it. I have the Susan Boyle one and the Nathaniel whatever, the one that goes back to 1850 or whatever.
My question, though, is, do you know the words?
Yes. I know some.
I mean, besides like that,
we'll
with all acquaintance be forgot, and then like nobody knows the name. It's like rah, 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 rah.
It goes. We'll take a cup of kindness, dear, for old Anne Sign.
I'm a little bit impressed right now because I would imagine if we polled or tested the large public. It would be very, very few that would know.
Well, I mean, I only know that, and I have it somewhere on my iPod, but I got it because I just found it to be a very, what's the word you're looking for? Kind of a bone-chilling, kind of a, I don't know what the word, it's spooky almost. It's haunting. That's the word I'm looking for.
So, you know, there's lots of songs socially that we know the words to. Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Yeah.
You know, everyone knows some version of their national anthem, whether it be the Star Spangled Banner, O Canada, All Praise to the Queen, or whatever the heck they sing over there in the United Kingdom. But what other songs come to mind? You know, celebratory songs.
You can't go wrong with Kool and the Gang. You can't go wrong, seriously. Kool and the Gang. I remember when me and my brother were young, we used to go to the A's stadium in California, in Alameda, California, to watch the Oakland A's, and Kool and the Gang was from the Bay Area at the time, and that was the big deal whenever they hit something, you know, got a base hit or whatever, celebration, and that song is just, you hear it at every wedding. I'm serious, that song is probably...
Or you could be like me and from the Midwest, and of course that song's automatically Friends in Low Places.
That's the country version of that. What about Who Let the Dogs Out? That seems to be. I saw it on an Android commercial the other day on TV, and
well, speaking of songs that are now on commercials, what is with Salt and Pepper and Push It?
Push it. I love that commercial where she's on the elevator. I'm pushing. Or the push mower on the. It's fully. That one chick, the light complected girl, she got some plastic surgery, huh? I looked at her face. I was like,
gonna go down that road. We could talk for hours.
I was like, wait a minute, is that the same girl? When are we gonna get to the point where we realize plastic surgery is really only about 10 or 15 years old? Really, you know? You know what I mean? It's like, do you want to be on the beginning end of some kind of new science?
Well, my question is with the big push of going green, at what point do we start recycling noses? You know, that's plastic.
It's some time, huh?
You know, plastics, I mean, essentially it's not plastic.
Silicone or something.
But at what point are we going to be like, you know, I don't need these ditties anymore. I'm going to trade them in.
Wouldn't that be something? Be like the propane storage tank, and you just bring your old ones in and leave them in there.
My question is who's the doctor that's going to figure that out? That he's like, all right, these were Pamela Anderson's 2 series ago. Mm-hmm. These are $60,000 a piece. Mm-hmm. Tommy Lee had his hands on these. You know, what's it going to take to get somebody to figure that out?
Collectors for I wonder. I bet there's a deep dark side of eBay. The darkest recesses of eBay where you could get some like One Direction snot rag or some handkerchief that they blew their nose on or something. I guarantee you there's... I
don't know if you know this or not, and I'm not proud that I do, but I a long time ago signed up for something called Groupon. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
are they still around?
They are, and primarily they focus locally, but you know, I get an email almost every day with the Groupon of the day, and it's on my spam account, so I never really see it. But when I log in to delete the 3,300 messages that I've acquired over the past 6 months that are just all junk, I'll occasionally open the Groupon of the day because it'll be something like get this explosive battery pack that will rock your world for $24.95. It's normally $200, and I'm like, oh my god,
gotta get that.
You know, I scroll down, and about 5-6 scrolls down the Groupon page, suddenly there's adult entertainment toys.
Oh, I didn't know you could. Well, bargains for them.
Yeah, apparently. So heed my warning. About 6 scrolls is about all you want to go, because after that you're crossing in from the Groupon to the strap-on. So
that's good. You're talking about that. I was thinking about this the other day. Is everybody has a buddy that's like the Marco Polo of sex? Like he's the adventurous guy for the group. Like somebody was telling me about some new, they call it Tenga or something. It's some new sex toy that it comes from Japan, and it literally is like you open it and it's made for self-pleasuring for men. And I got to thinking to myself, I would have never known this thing unless I had a buddy of mine that's like, man, you got to check this thing out. He's like the Marco Polo of the group. He's willing to travel the Silk Road to China and find something new for. But,
well, I had a great Christmas. Joel, I'm assuming you had a good Christmas.
I did.
And all that's over with. The tree's put away. Elf on the Shelf is stuffed back in what little box he hides in for the normal 11 months out of the year. But we're not quite to the new year. So let's recap 2014 today, if we could.
Some of the biggest stories of last year.
And I'm going to start with a story locally that touched so many, and that is the Hailey Owens abduction and murder.
Oh my gosh. How old was she? 12?
12 years old. Taken from her front yard by a public school worker. Rocked the community, rocked the nation, something that every parent's nightmare, I'm sure, lived.
Yeah.
That,
I think the thing that was so confusing about that case is that police were just a few steps behind him.
Yeah, seconds from catching him.
Yeah, that's what was so heartbreaking about it.
And the crazy thing about it is they knew. I remember watching it. She was abducted at, right at dusk, so 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we knew she had been found and had been murdered in 2-3 hours. That was what was so crazy about it. Is as far as police investigations go, it was really quick.
Now here's my question with that child killers and rapists and stuff like that. They say that it's progressive, that you don't just wake up one day and then you get to that extreme, that it comes in increments, throughout your lifetime. And the guy was 40 somewhere?
52.
52, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, he has probably had other close calls up to this.
We've seen evidence since that in the courtroom provided that he had portfolios of child pornography. And so yeah, obviously there was a
build up to that.
There was. The question is A, did somebody know? B, if they did know, why didn't they say something?
What would you have known, though?
Yeah.
He may have been creepy, but you wouldn't.
And that's the dark side of it is there probably was nothing to know. As far as it was concerned, it was just one of those things, very saddening, heartbreaking and horrible for the family. But
he had some connection to Marshfield too.
He did. He graduated from Marshfield, and the family was from Marshfield.
Is that right?
As well. So there's.
I haven't really been following that case. Are they still pursuing murder one with them?
They are. They are pursuing murder one, and it's been rumored the death penalty. Obviously we don't know.
Anytime you kill a kid, you got to be in the. It's like if you don't want to wait in line. It's like you get the express ticket.
Yeah. What was that law in? I think it's Texas. Like if more than 3 people or 3 or more people see you commit a heinous crime or murder, they've got like an express line execution. Like,
is that right?
You don't
track it.
You don't go into the list. You're like, next up, buddy.
I heard recently that China has finally ended their policy of harvesting the organs of death row people that they kill.
If you're sitting on a transplant waiting list and you're like, man, I'm really sick, I guess you probably don't care, right?
I guess, but I think it sets almost a conflict in interest.
But what if you you get that transplant, like you get a new liver, and then suddenly you're like, damn, I'm really hungry for human flesh. Like,
I've always wondered that. There's a story about a guy that never ate pizza before, never hated pizza, got a liver transplant, and then he started craving pizza.
Well, we borderline on what's socially acceptable on this show, and my grandfather had a blood transfusion before he passed. He joked that all he wanted, it must have been a black man's blood, because all he wanted afterwards was fried chicken and watermelon.
Oh my gosh!
So.
NAACP, please don't come after me. Al Sharpton, please don't leave New York for that one.
But I think when I look back on 2014, that was one of the stories that hits me, and it was close to home.
Very impactful. Very.
But it was a deal where we were so close. They were so close to stopping it. So close.
From what I remember, that he went to Walmart or somewhere and got some plastic bags and lime and like bleach, and he had all the accoutrement, for body disposal and stuff. And they caught him. Wasn't he walking to his house when they caught up with him or something? He had the bag in his hand, from what I remember.
I don't know the facts of what. I know that there was something in the back of the truck, and we'll probably hear more as trial, I think, is something due sometime this year. But that's something I'm not 100% on. My next story of the year, for me, I'm a soccer fan, and this summer was the World Cup. And Joel, you're not a soccer fan, or we're not a soccer fan.
I was not. I have to say, I was taken. I was really enwrapped with that.
The sport, you still have issues with the sport itself, but the pageantry and the following, and
I think and that's interesting that you mentioned that. I think as an outsider and not being very familiar with soccer, my first opinion was a bunch of guys running around for an hour and nobody scoring. And
which is mostly true.
I really, to be fair though, I didn't understand the game within the game, and having you here watching it with me, and it was such a benefit to be able to say, hey, what are they doing here? What's the idea behind this?
Well, like, as Americans, we've got the National Football League, the NFL, that plays for the Super Bowl. No other country gets to play for it. We've got Major League Baseball for the World Series, and ultimately, it's always USA teams, American teams. We got the Toronto Blue Jays that maybe could make it, but they haven't.
Wouldn't that be something if they started letting Cuba in on it?
But like all of our elite sports, the NBA essentially is all teams from the United States.
Yeah.
We dominate all of that, and then here we go to the World Cup where we're kind of like the little brother.
I was watching one of these shows on ESPN, and I think it was Wilbon, said something that I thought was really important, is that coach, Kleinsman, the head coach of the USA soccer team, kind of distanced himself from, they took umbrage on, what is that show with Kornheiser?
I don't remember.
30 for 30 or something. I don't know. But there was, pardon the interruption, and he was saying that they thought it was a really kind of a cheap shot that after the USA lost, Kleinsman was like, I accept no responsibility. USA is just not good enough to win at this level. It was basically, he was like the coach, but he didn't want to go take the coach. I think the coach has to take the hit too,
And from a team USA, an American fan, but when you look at the skill level, really, we don't have none of our players are playing at the top levels of the world.
Okay, it's like, why would you sign on to coach a team and then try to distance yourself when they don't go all the way?
Well,
you partially have some responsibility.
But he said when he took the job, he thought they were 8 years away, and we're 2 years in.
Wow.
So
I can see why a lot of people were upset with him, because it kind of sounded like, well, it's not my fault. I did everything I could I was given a bunch of junk, and I did the best I could.
Well, we watched that Belgium game where Tim Howard, who I have torn down in the past, had a game to remember in goal. I mean, essentially did what he needed to do to win the game. If you remember,
how many blocks? 16?
21 is what he ended up with. But if you remember late in the game, Team USA had a ball fall to someone's foot.
Chris
Wondolowski. Yeah. All he had to do was tap it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
And is it Kiowa Indian? Part Kiowa, yeah.
And so
young kid too, right?
And the craziest thing is if you look at that, they lost to the Germans 1-0,
and they were supposed to be the the game of death or whatever. What do they call it?
The group of death. Got out of the group of death. But think about that. You lost to the Germans 1-0. Do you remember what happened when Brazil played Germany? 7-1. And here. I mean, Brazil.
Was that the one where the man broke his back?
It was the game after Neymar.
Yeah.
Back. But yeah, I mean, they were without Thiago Silva, but still, how about that German team?
Yeah.
I mean, it was men against boys out there.
It was, and I love to see the African teams. What was it, Cote d'Ivoire, and who was the other one? What was the team that was like, we're not going to play unless you fly a suitcase of money over there?
Ghana. The USA Slayers, the last 2 World Cups have been ended by Ghana, and finally the USA gets past Ghana, thanks to a John Brooks, the unsung hero, header in the 83rd minute
that was amazing
to get the 3 points, and that's something you didn't really understand was the 3 points, 1 point, 0 points.
He's going to be back, right? He's
very young. He's a young player.
Is Tim Howard going to be back, you think, for the next one?
He hasn't made his intentions known yet, but I think it'd be...
He's going to be long in the tooth.
He will be long in the tooth. And we've got some capable goaltenders behind him where it may be a deal where his level falls off enough that one of them surpasses him.
What about that Donovan guy that you don't like?
He's done. He's completely retired from all soccer.
Okay.
I wouldn't shock me to see him on the Team USA sidelines.
Coaching?
But I think it's going to be after Klinsmann is done.
They don't get along.
Well, I just think different philosophies.
John Harbaugh and
I mean he's
the coffee.
I mean he's basically the opposite of what Klinsmann wants right now, and that's a little flashy, a little he's got a little American swag to him, and I think for the most part Klinsmann wants the German foot soldier player right now.
Take orders.
So play his style.
Do you think USA will come back with the same mantra, the I believe? I thought that was a good mantra.
Well, I mean, that is an American Outlaws deal that they've carried for several years now. The unsung thing about soccer and the World Cup is for the most part, the United States is completely asleep to it for 3.5
years. Yeah. I have to admit, when it's on and there's football playing, American football, I'm probably not watching.
But the American Outlaws, they've had that mantra for a while, and I think it was something that the world has feared the American Outlaws for several years now. People don't like playing in the United States. Mexico, they try to get all their games in L.A. We'll wonder why. And Team USA says, no, we're done playing you there. So
well, they're building more stadiums here in the U.S. and it's including that Kansas City one.
Yeah, Livestrong Park in Kansas City is done and will host a CONCACAF qualifier match next June. So
and I think that will restore some balance because like you said, Los Angeles, San Diego, those are home field advantage for South America, Latin American teams. I would say.
So moving on as we kind of chronologically, not too long after the World Cup ended. Tragedy in our home state, and we discussed it last week. The killing of Michael Brown and the I'm going to call it trials of Darren Wilson.
Grand jury indictment.
So, probably, Time will come out with their stories of the year here in another day. Probably the story of the year, would you say?
It'd be hard pressed to beat that
Ebola,
one.
Maybe?
Yeah, I think Ebola would probably, because it has more worldwide implication there. So I think Ebola. And I don't want to get off topic too quickly, but Ebola, I think when we look back at how afraid we were.
Well, I mean,
didn't we? One thing America needs to learn is stop being so afraid.
Well, I think part of the fear came from the idea that medical professionals that knew what they were doing were getting it.
Yeah, I'm still kind of iffy about that. Don't you kind of feel like the CDC didn't tell us that maybe it could be airborne? Because how else are you going to get that if you're wrapped up like a mummy and everything. It's got to be some kind of airborne. And I think that's what they were avoiding telling people is that, spit or spray can probably get you. And,
I don't know at what point we backed our fear up a little bit, but it was definitely there for a while. It was something that
it disappeared once the Ferguson thing. It literally they
were kind of running in the same time. The Michael Brown killing happened in September. Well, actually, the end of August. Labor Day weekend. Correct?
Yeah.
And Ebola really took hold in September and October.
Yeah. There was kind of a pause because the first victim, patient 0, Jerry, I can't remember his name now. He passed away in Texas, in was it Dallas?
Mm-hmm.
Dallas. And then it was probably like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then till the nurses got it.
Yeah.
And then there was this big scare about one nurse went to Chicago to visit her family, and she was on the plane. And remember that ridiculousness? And it's like now. It's almost like 9/11 when you look back at how hysterical.
I think the deal with Ebola is zombie fear. Zombies have become such a part of pop culture here.
Culture.
The idea that somebody could be carrying something that essentially rendered you dead, walking dead, essentially, with some of them, and that you could have contact with other people, spreading it, never knowing it. I mean, I think that's where the real fear came in. Is we had this undercurrent in the back of our minds that
already built in.
This is zombies. This is what
from all the media, from World War Z and
essentially, I think the fear was more. It was never said,
right?
But when you think about some of our irrational reaction to it, maybe that's why.
The worst I heard about the Ebola scare was some Republican congressman from Georgia was weeks before the first guy came down with it, the African or Liberian guy from he said, the immigration debate was just really resounding through the Congress, and this guy had the nerve. Griner, I can't remember his name. Griner, maybe. But he had the nerve to say, it's the illegal immigrants that are bringing us in across the border from and stoking these fears that I was talking about. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think politicians can be, we get so upset about the guy in Ferguson, burn this place down. And is there any difference when you have somebody that's out there inciting that kind of fear, that's inculcating that type of fomenting that, there are probably thousands of people who are burying silver coins and buying up ammunition and taking all kinds of radical steps based on the reliance on that panic,
Well, I think you're probably right. It's probably no different than inciting a riot, as we talked about last week. But he has a pulpit. There's always that he has a pulpit.
I think he should be sanctioned for that, at least fined for that, or at least publicly ridiculed for making that. Because it gets to a public safety issue, like a guy yelling fire in a crowded theater. It kind of gets to that point where if you're making false statements, you're in that office and you're out there espousing that hatred, It's a good thing nobody got shot over that deal. I could see those guys on the Texas Mexico border or Arizona, that already have a hair trigger.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot to be said about that. It goes back to the fear we're talking about with Ebola. Is it rational or not? And not to bring this up again, but we saw a sitting prosecuting attorney here in Missouri basically accuse the media of trying to make something that wasn't. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that the media did do that, but how often have we seen this 24-hour news cycle recently really cause issues in maybe muddying the waters or
so I saw Don Lemon, the CNN reporter, got I don't know, what is the raspberry for reporters? They really gave him the business. He got apparently there's some award, like the Pulitzer Prize is the best journalism award you can win.
Oh, the Ned Reynolds Award for...
He got the worst. He got the worst. He got
like the whatever
the opposite of that. Like
congrats, you get a Hershey Kiss Award?
I don't know. Bullsheet Award. Maybe.
Let's call it. Let's give out.
We just did it. Let's do that every week.
We're gonna give out the annual Bullsheet Award.
We should do it weekly.
This is completely spontaneous, but we're gonna start today with our 2014 Bullsheet Award
winner is Don Lemon for two things. I don't know if you saw the episode where Talib Kweli went on there, the former rapper he used to be on A Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
And got on there, and Don Lemon basically treated this. He in the rap world, in the hip hop world. This guy would be. I'm trying to compare it to the country world here, because at the country world, Johnny Cash is at the top, right?
Well, Hank Williams probably, and then Johnny Cash. Yeah.
So he's not on that tier, and he's not on George Jones' tier.
He's a little lower.
Oh yeah.
So he's like an Alan Jackson.
I wouldn't even say that high. I would go maybe Kenny Chesney.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. But anyway.
Hey, I got a quick joke for you.
Okay.
Do you know what the only cowboy in Kenny Chesney is?
Something to do with a beach, maybe?
Tim McGraw.
How are we getting away with this? I thought this was G-rated.
Well, that is G-rated.
Oh, okay. All right. So going back, Don Lemon gets the.
Does he get the Bullsheet Award for reporting this year? Oh my gosh,
that guy has got to be the worst reporter. And then when they had a young kid, and I can't remember. He's younger. I say kid, but he's probably 30. African American guy on CNN with Don Lemon, and who's the lawyer that they have? That's Cuomo. He's related to the New York governor.
It's CNN.
Yeah. He was.
Most people don't watch CNN.
All these guys were in Ferguson, and this was after the decision came out, so the rioting was going on. Don Lemon is standing there and they threw I think it was a tear gas canister or something, came near him. He has a gas mask on, and he starts flipping out. The guy that has nothing on his face, the younger reporter, takes the mic and goes into the crowd and does the reporting, basically carried the show. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, he is such a
Does he get a Bullsheet Award as well?
He should get like some kind of medal. That dude.
He gets the Bull Award and Sheet Award.
Yes.
Okay, my Bullsheet Award I want to start off with is ISIS. And my question to you, ISIS, who do you think you are? You're acting like you're a sovereign state, basically declaring war on the United States, and when it all comes to pass, you go hide up in a mountain because you're a bunch of pansies? Come on.
I mean, that's got to be either the boldest.
Well, first off,
or the
Bullsheet Award should probably go to the Iraqi National Guard that basically stripped down naked and ran from the mother efforts whenever they crossed the line.
There's a joke. I saw a T-shirt. It said AK-47s for sale. Never fired, only dropped one. Iraqi AK-47s.
That's good. I like
Never
that.
fired, only dropped once.
That's good.
They took off.
I mean, ISIS, are they credible?
No, but the thing that scares me about them is how do they sell oil? How do you literally sell oil on the black market? Seriously, I'm not kidding. How do you put that black
Where do you think we're getting? Where do you think we're getting $2 gasoline?
I don't know, but I'm thinking it's
like at what point, like, you know, we got the Somali pirates and Captain Phillips. That movie came out, and they basically took over. Get anything, but like, what's ISIS floating around out there capturing oil tankers and selling them to people?
I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, how do you do that? Who are you selling it to? North Korea? Who's buying ISIS oil? And do you want that oil? You know what I mean?
Well, I want to know.
You got to deal with them.
You know, we got Motorola, and it's kind of got the Pegasus, you know, the wing for their logo. What's the ISIS logo?
It's just a bunch of scribbling on a black flag.
Is it?
That's their flag.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I want to believe they've got a logo, and it's spherical, and it looks kind of like a flat area with maybe oil pumps in the background and smoke.
With smoke.
You know, that's what I want to believe the ISIS logo.
It galls me that, first of all, the United States military, after 10, 13 years of war, this is the last group of people you want to be dealing with. These are hardened veterans that know exactly what they're doing. If you're going to pick a fight with anybody, you need to pick it with somebody like the Chinese or somebody who is going to have difficulty getting to you. We have if anything, we've perfected the art of mobilizing troops and getting them on the ground and feeding and sustaining them. I think that was a dummy move.
My question here. What do they think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to be like, or something everybody can convene in Geneva and like, okay, they've got a country now, we're gonna start another Israel for them?
Yeah. Are they under that impression? Or maybe they're just saying de facto. We're here, we own it, kind of like a squatter's rights. We're here, we've been here for 10 years. Nobody's been able to push us out.
Are we going to have like a catchy slogan like the LGBT group has? We're here, we're here. Is that what we're getting towards? We're here. We got beards. Get used to it.
I don't know. My thing is, who's going to do business with them? Would you want to do? You could be beheaded.
Well, like,
why are you going to go buy oil from them?
The problem is we've all done business with them. You're walking down the street in New York City, and some guy walks up to you and he's like, "Hey, you want to buy a watch?" That's ISIS. Essentially, they're the street peddlers. That's who they are in the world.
Well, I saw that they had made a call. They just killed 150 people who were trying to leave ISIS. They had joined ISIS. They got there and they go, "Oh, this is too much like war. I want to go back to France or England or Germany or whatever." And they killed them.
Me and my brother kind of got into that airsoft for a little while, where we'd go to this place in Ozark and we'd suit up in our battle fatigue, whatever it was for the day. Had
I can totally see you doing that. Yeah.
It feels real because it's got the kickback and everything.
Don't do that in Cleveland. You'd be black.
But we do this, but at no point was I like, this is so much fun, I'd like to go do this for real.
Exactly.
Like,
eat MREs.
My question is could we stop ISIS if we just open a couple extra paintball facilities over there?
I'm telling you, I've said it for years. Why don't we allow some of these gun nuts that are just itching to get their gun off? Why don't we just give them special visas? It'll be like a hunting tag. You just be like, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, just you can't come back until you got one or two. You know what I mean?
So like a terrorist tag.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. Half of Texas.
Are you listening, liberals of the world?
Half of Texas would leave tomorrow, and Arkansas would follow right behind them. And who's the other gun nut?
So what you're saying is we're gonna get them over there, and then the president's gonna be like, "No, close the borders. Nobody."
No. We want you back. We want you back, but you have to sign a waiver.
Can you get like a uniform, like kind of like the World Cup uniforms, and depending on how many you've killed, you get a star.
You get rank, everything. And
I'm a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah,
I've killed 33.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. And you have to sign off on your passport. Where if you get abducted, we're not Bo Bergdahling you. You knew the odds. You went to the harm.
I'm glad you brought Bergdahl up.
Let's talk about that. And Cuba.
Essentially, the United States, for the first time in my lifetime that I know of, negotiated with terrorists, correct?
Well, there's a New York Times report today, there's a Cuba connection to Bo Bergdahl that a lot of people are not aware of. Well, and I'll talk about it. But what happened was the Cuban Five, they're known as these guys that were Cuban spies. They were from Cuba. We captured them here. Cuba got one of our CIA guys. And the story was that with the help of the Pope, and other I didn't know I was being filmed. Okay, the story goes, and I just read this article briefly, so I'm not well versed on it as I should. But they met in Ottawa, Canada, and this was right after the Bo Bergdahl release. And what happened was our spy is getting old. His mom was going to die from cancer in Texas, and the Cubans were afraid that they were about to lose their biggest bargaining chip, because this guy said, if my mom dies and I'm still in captivity, I'm killing myself. And so the Cubans reached out to us after the Bo Bergdahl deal and through back channels, and this is what the New York Times is reporting today, that the Pope had something to do with it and other backdoor channels. But for the first time, the Cubans said, because you have made that gesture, we know that it's possible that you will deal. We want to trade your CIA guy for R3, and so there is a connection there.
So, quick question:
Now the big question is
Fidel Castro done?
I think Fidel Castro is in an extremely demented state where he probably doesn't even know who he is.
So
I really,
a report came out a couple weeks ago. U.S.-Cuban relations are
53 years
at an all-time positive high. We're talking like an embargo might be lifted.
It should be. Look at all the grain. Look at all the agriculture that we'll be able to sell to them. States like Missouri will benefit directly from an increased partner in the Caribbean. We don't have to ship it all the way to Europe. Man, that's going to be a boom.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, is this something where we finally reached that level?
I think Cuba has started to see the writing on the wall with Russia. They're a client state of Russia. And Russia has been crippled by these sanctions. They've been brought to their knees. And I think Cuba sees that their host, their number one contributor, is going by, and oil is dropping. And they know, listen, we got to do something. And I think the time is right. I think it's the right time.
Okay, this year we had the midterm elections. Largely Republican. Not a good year to be a Democrat.
Resounding victory for Republican Congress.
Do you remember in your lifetime in midterm elections where the president did so little campaigning for his party?
I was going to say with Bush won. Yeah, I think he was probably about as strident. He just kind of.
Are we basically at a standstill for the next 2 years as far as legislation goes?
No, I mean, look at what we've seen with Cuba. I mean, and then we're seeing activity. Well, the Supreme Court's going to make the decision next year, early, on Affordable Care Act. We're going to get some. We're going to figure out what's going on, and I think that's going to be a big battle. I mean, it's working in Kentucky like gangbusters. They love it in Kentucky. In other red states.
So you think that's
Arkansas.
Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to see a repeal.
No.
And I've not felt like we were going to. At no point, and I know a lot of the very conservative ran on this idea that they could repeal Obamacare, but that's not happening.
It's not as unpopular as they made it out to be.
Now it has room for improvement.
Oh, I'd say that from the beginning. I don't know why they went away from the single payer.
And I think you're going to see it eventually, because I think businesses are going to require it. But we talked about the gas already.
Yes, record gas low. What is it here in Missouri now? $2.18.
Basically, yeah. I mean,
about $2.19.
No, I bought gas this morning for $1.80.
Jesus.
So I remember I was 18 years old. And it was August 3rd, and I filled up with gas at the corner of Grand and National. I went to Missouri State University to pick up my books for my freshman year of college. You remember what happened the next day? Katrina.
Oh!
I remember vividly that day. I bought gas because the news was basically like, oh, it's going to hit around New Orleans or Galveston, which is the major oil ports. Get gas because it's going to go up, and I bought it for $1.61 that day. I remember vividly in my mind.
That's amazing that you remember that. Chase, for the record, Chase has one of these uncanny memories. He's one of these weird freaks of nature that can remember exactly what he ate for dinner last Thursday.
But then I also remember going back to that same gas station 3 days later, and it was like $2.10. And I don't think I ever saw it below $2 since then. I think it always has floated. Up,
the Saudi. Now here's the deal. Have you heard about Hubbard's peak? Have you heard the concept that oil has peaked?
Well,
that there is no more oil to be found in the world, and it's the Saudi big lake of oil. Their huge reservoir. I think they call it Ranaria or whatever.
You've seen what CBS Evening News is reporting as the cause, right?
That they're running out.
Well, for the gas to be going down. The cost of gasoline going down.
OPEC is not coming off their price. They won't.
Well, and the United States, for the first time in our history, is now the largest oil exporter in the world.
Right, which has a double-edged sword because it takes so much energy to process the tar sand that we are exporting that it's almost a net loss.
Well,
when you think about it,
I think
for the environment,
it probably is a net loss for the environment. But I think what the what I take from it is, for the first time in our lifetime, the United States is saying, go away, OPEC.
Mm-hmm. Do what you want to do. Venezuela, Nigeria, all the other big oil exporters. Good luck.
Yeah, if you don't want us, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder is that message going to start hitting them?
I think so. And
look at Russia. Russia can't get oil.
I want to talk about the biggest non-reported story this year. Can we talk about Lockheed-Martin? Can we talk about their invention? Can we talk about fusion?
They've allegedly created a fusion reactor. The first cold fusion reactor, correct?
That is scalable. That it's about the size of a container, like you would see on the back of a train or on a container ship.
Well, essentially, we're talking 8 foot by 10 foot by 20 foot.
Right, and the concept being that this thing, the byproducts of it are helium and water. That's the effluent that for fission you have this nuclear reactive waste that lasts for centuries, and you can't store it anywhere. And Lockheed Martin, which I think was suspiciously, I would say, coincidental, that the Air Force's X-37B came back to Earth after being on orbit around the globe for 2 years. 2 days or 3 days after it returned, Lockheed Martin said, yep, we got a proof of concept. We have a fusion reactor that is scalable. We can hook this thing up to coal plants, as it is now. Electric plants typically will burn coal to heat water to create steam, and the steam will turn the turbines and create the electricity. Well, what they're saying now is instead of bringing that coal in, they can bring one of these trailers in there and hook that bad boy right up to the reactor and make that electricity. This is a game changer.
Well, I don't know. I know you're a big Nat Geo fan.
Yes.
And I don't know if you read the article that came out just before Christmas, but a Dutch scientist has found a way to isolate photosynthesis cells and has created the first in the world standalone leaf. Has no root system, bears no fruit. All it does is absorb light and release oxygen.
Ooh.
And when asked, somebody basically said, this can't be a food source. What's the purpose?
Carbon emissions.
And his response was, this is the key to interstellar space travel. This is the key to generating oxygen.
Oh, from sunlight.
In space.
I hadn't even considered that. I was thinking that...
Is that the game changer for you?
Wow. That is a paradigm shift.
Because the fear has always been, we can get out there in certain ways, but eventually we're going to run out of not only energy for the ship. Now, this reactor that we're talking about, the fission reactor, would change.
When did this come out? How come
it was about 2 weeks ago?
Why didn't you tweet me? I got to know these things. That's a game changer.
Well, I'm telling you now, Joel.
I tweet this guy probably 4 or 5 times a week. I never hear it again. It's like I'm just throwing him in a dark hole. Just throwing a bone down the hallway.
All right, well, we need to wrap up this end of the year segment, and we've touched on a lot of things. I want to give out one more Bullsheet award, and this one is locally, so most of our listeners won't have a clue what we're talking about. But this Bullsheet award goes out to our good friend and soon-to-be Webster County prosecutor Benjamin Bergstresser, who dethroned a sitting incumbent in Danette Paget that takes over his office tomorrow. So congratulations, Ben. We're sure you'll do a great job. And then I also want to thank our sponsors, InBev and Budweiser, for being such a good sponsor of the show, and Premium Beverages with Red Bull. We really appreciate you providing us with the substance for today's recordings.
Awesome.
You have anything else you'd like to say, Joel, before we sign off?
I just want to everybody make your New Year's resolution, and the best way to stick to it is create a goal and write it down.
What's your New Year's resolution?
I'm going to quit smoking this year.
Quit smoking. And we've done that before, Joel.
I have. But the good thing is I know what I have to do to make it work.
My New Year resolution this year is to not make any New Year's resolution. I'm one of these people that, I get on Twitter and I see the New Year, New Me thing, and I'm just like, no, dude, you're going to stop doing whatever you say you're going to stop doing for about 4 days.
I don't know. I quit smoking one time for 5 years.
No, I'm not saying that some won't keep to it, but like they say every statistic is made up, but I feel like 88% of all New Year's resolutions are a failure.
You gotta have goals, right? You gotta have at least start somewhere.
Well, again, thank you for listening. Everybody have a great New Year's. If you drink, don't drive. Call a cab, get home safely.
Google Car. I want to talk about Google Car next time.
We will talk about Google Car. So, thank you guys again so much. Again, I'm Chase Wilson.
I'm Joel Z.Williams. You can see me on YouTube.
And we'll see you next week.
All right. So, you think that was pretty cool?
That was so long. I wanted it to be like 30 minutes at most.
Oh, I didn't know you were shooting for short.
Well, no, it was fine. I didn't even realize we talked that long.
It doesn't seem like that long, yeah. I wonder if you caught any of it.
I'm about to find out. What's today?
You should label it.
12.
Today is the 30th, right?
30. 14.
Yeah.
About to find out if we got any of it.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Santa Claus is come and gone. Welcome back to another
Much better.
Bullsheet. I'm your host, Chase Wilson, along with me and my good friend.
I didn't know we had sponsors.
I'm good. I'm in a good mood. I'm ready for the New Year's and ready to discuss some really hot topics in the news.
I want to discuss something before we get to the news.
Yeah, the sound came out pretty
It's
good.
something that bothers me every year on New Year's. Ball drops, and you kiss your loved one, or the stranger standing next to you, however it seems to work. And then we sing this old English song that no one knows the words to.
Old and sign.
Do you like
actually have two
ad-lib there a little bit?
Yeah.
Susan Boyle one and the Nathaniel whatever the one.
I thought I had some good jokes and you just walked right over.
My question
Did I?
now is,
You